This game originally caught my eye when browsing through the PlayStation deals with my friend. This is Asdivine Hearts. Don't go away. Let me start by saying that if I can get this review to my average review time of like, what, 10-15 minutes, I'm basically God. Because this game offers so very little and is so just basic that there's almost no point of me doing a review. Let's start with the story. Not a lot here. There's the light god and there's a shadow god. The light god comes down because they're quarreling and wants to take possession of a body. Goes to take possession of main character Zack, but a cat jumps in the way. So the light god kind of enters the cat's body and it stays there until the end of the game. Now main character Zack and fellow party members between Stella, Felix the cat, Uriel, Celine, they track down the shadow god and pretty much kill him. That's it. Goodbye. In all seriousness, that is the story. You travel from city to dungeon to city to dungeon, city to dungeon, and you do that in a repetitive cycle until you reach the end of the game. The characters do have some very small moments. Stella, I honestly, there's not much to talk about Stella. Uriel, or whatever her name is, she's kind of interesting because she's basically from a different dimension. Seriously, there's nothing else to talk about here other than the fact that all three girls on this team want Zack. They have a huge crush on him, and they literally talk about it 24/7. But enough about the story. That's only about 25% of what you're doing, which is just walking around, doing text box dialogue, and getting through the story. 75% of what you're doing, though, is combat, because it pops up a lot. I'll just describe it to you. So it's turn-based. I like turn-based. Actually, that and the way this game looks is the reason why I even played this game. You have physical and magical attacks. Now, this is a bit of an asterisk because it's not like every character has its own individual stuff. The cat, Felix, and Zack share light magic attacks, and Stella and Uriel, God, I hate that name, share shadow attacks, while Celine deals with, I don't even know what this was, metal or bubble. I called it metallic. I don't know what this is. So basically, there are only 3 classes of magic to choose from because 4 of them share a class with each other. And I know this sounds interesting, but in reality, it kind of sucks because the leveling up system, it's not like the moves are balanced at all. Every single new move you learn is way better than previous. So I could have like 11 physical attacks unlocked in Celine, but why would I ever choose like the 4th one? Sure, it could cause paralysis, but not really against bosses. That's like pretty much null and void. Or I could just use the last attack and just do like 40 times more damage. So combat worked like you just always had the same move set until you leveled up enough and you unlocked a newer, bigger one. And the last one pretty much just gets tossed away. In some circumstances, there are movesets that do outlast others, moves that cover an entire area. But even then, I was just using movesets that to just spice up some of the gameplay instead of just using the same thing over and over. Movesets can sometimes induce toxication, sleep, paralysis. There's a fever one. There is a fatigue one. Although it doesn't really play into stuff too much, it is cool that it's kind of there. Now, what I described there, I hope that sounded good to get your gameplay worth, because that's all there is. No customization of anything. No customization of gear, no customization of weaponry. Every time you level up, skill points are auto-allocated to specific categories. You have no choice of what levels up. This is the most basic game I've ever played in my life. Although that doesn't make it bad, it doesn't really make it good. Now you do have a couple little things on the side here to spice up the gameplay, hopefully enough. You have rocks. Now this doesn't really sound important, but sometimes when you walk into a battle, there will be a rock on the battlefield. if you destroy that rock, it will unearth a random item. This was actually like one of my favorite things in the entire game because it was just something I didn't know what would happen. Jewels are actually kind of this game's main calling card, I will give it that. This is an interesting thing. You start out with basically a Rubik's Cube square of like a grade of like 5x4 or 4x4 or whatever, and you get these little Tetris-y blocks to slot in. What these Tetris-y blocks do is basically upgrade your character a little bit. In the early stages, it's pretty much 15% chance less to get poisoned, or paralyzed, or sleep status, or 4% increased strength, or 4% increased HP. But the longer you play the game, and once you get into the latter part of the game, you unlock some really interesting ones, like consecutive attack. Whenever you do a basic attack, the character with the jewel equipped has a 60% chance to combo attack with you. So it's basically a 2-for-1 shot. And this is basically my favorite thing about the game, is the only say I had in anything that had to do with my characters other than clicking which... Actually, no, I didn't have a say in which ability I would use in combat, because it makes no sense to use old abilities because your new one's always doing better. So that doesn't even make sense either. So the only say I really had in this game was using the jewel system. And yeah, that was basically the best thing on this game. Presentation. So the soundtrack, I will say, this game went for quality over quantity. I say that because there is 2 in-game fighting soundtracks. 2. One for bosses, one for non-bosses. So you're constantly going to hear the same soundtracks. There's always the same theme in villages, in dungeons, and in the open world. But, I will give the game this. The first open world had a different soundtrack than the second open world, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I was kind of relieved when I got teleported to like the next area of the game and it was a different soundtrack. I was like, thank God. Not necessarily because the old soundtrack was bad, but because this game is pretty long, I just heard it a little too much. Other than that, presentation is not a lot to talk about here. I don't dislike the way this game looks. Dungeons though, dungeons looked kind of samey. There's basically 3 kinds of dungeons in this game. They get reused a little bit. And the attack animations I felt strike a really strong balance between really long animations take up too much time and really short animations don't look cool. And I felt like the game had a pretty decent balance on that, where I never felt like this animation sucks or this animation takes way too long, this is like way too long of a battle. So for overall impact, I enjoyed this game. The first half. There's almost 0 ways to tell just by looking at the gameplay you've seen, but I played this game for 27 hours. 27 hours in the game where you basically only do one thing, and there's not a whole lot of variety there. After the 10-hour mark, I started to realize, wait a minute, there's no customization here. Like, yes, you can get better swords and armor for each character, but that's only once per city. Every single new city you go to, the shopkeeper will be like, hey, I have new items. And you go there, and I started to see the pattern that I already knew. There will be 1 new armor and 1 new attack weapon for each character. And that's what it was. There was no like, oh, choose between these like 5 weapons. This one does better. This one has a chance to, paralyze, whatever. This one, poison. And after the 10-hour mark, I felt that. After the 15-hour mark, it started to sink in that this is not changing. After the 20-hour mark, I started to get pretty much like, I just want this game to be done with. What it is that there's an auto battle feature. So what I would do is I would walk in, use a super strong attack that'll attack all enemies, then just use the auto battle feature, which pretty much runs the battle 3 times speed, and just keep going through. Because at that point, I fought the boss fight. I fought like the same dudes like 10 times. I'm just waiting for the story to end here. And on top of that auto battle system, I actually used it quite a bit in the early game as well. You see, there's a trust gauge in here. And when it reaches 100%, you basically unlock Hellfire. You unlock a super duper ability. And I will say, good job here, because each character has its own super ability. You can only use this once and at 100% until it recharges back to 100%. Whosever move it is that you use it on, it changes. With like Selene or Zack, it's about attacking. With Stella, your entire team gets boosted attack points, defense points, speed, intelligence, which I don't even know what intelligence did. But my favorite to pretty much just con bosses was Uriel's, which was the opposite of Stella's. Hers is pretty much grovel on your hands and knees. She attacks the enemy's square grid area, and they're paralyzed, sleep, poison, fevered, fatigue. Every status effect you can think of in the game affects them. Bosses also, this is the only way you can get bosses. And their attack, defense, intelligence, speed all down by 2 points. So, and this is huge because every single move in this game that says causes paralysis or causes this, it has in an asterisk, quotations, brackets, bosses weak, which in translation, it doesn't work on bosses. It is extremely rare that you paralyze a boss with just a basic attack. It almost never happened. I think twice it happened, and I was like absolutely surprised and shocked. So if I got into a boss fight which I couldn't necessarily get through, I would just spend my time sprinting around the dungeon, fighting enemies in auto battle until my gauge reached 100%, go into the battle, use Uriel, absolutely destroy him. He can't move, he's getting poisoned, it's pretty much an absolute walk-in, and then I walk through the boss. So maybe that doesn't sound like the most interesting thing. I gotta be honest, the trust gauge here with the attacks was probably my second favorite thing behind the jewel system. I've basically dissected every single part of this game, except for finding hidden treasure chests in dungeons. There, 100% covered this game. And yeah, that's basically it. So 6.2 out of 10. I gotta be honest, this game had a pretty hard downfall for me. I really did enjoy the first 10 hours, I'll be honest. And at the first 10 hour mark, I was like, you know what? I'm pretty excited for Asdivine Hearts 2. Am I still excited for Asdivine Hearts 2? I don't know. I think I will play Asdivine Hearts 2. Just not anytime soon at all. Maybe in like a half a year time, I'll be like, you know what? Asdivine Hearts 2... maybe it has some bonus features included. Maybe it's got something extra compared to the first game. So I'll check it out. But don't expect that review up soon. What's coming next? I don't even know. Oh, I know. Ziggurat 2. Stay tuned for that. Ziggurat 1's an insane game. Ziggurat 2 should be interesting to look at. So that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed this review. Peace. What is up? I know what you're thinking. You're only here for the bonus Easter egg soundtrack I put in at the end of every video. But did you also know I have a donation page under Buy Me a Coffee? Donate whatever you want to my channel and I'll put half of that back to an environmental charity. So that's that. Enjoy the music. Peace out.